I'm back here again today with Sydney Bridger, our community manager. And today we're going to be tackling common pain points she's hearing from her conversation with global mobility leaders. Sid, can you tell us about some of the pain points you're discovering in the conversations and benchmarking data?
Most definitely, Laura. Over 2024, we've been citing data from HR and global mobility professionals, and the pain points have been pretty specific in terms of a few points. The first one is in regards to policy and compliance. We heard from leaders that their program really needed clear, consistent policies and guidelines. Specifically, some of the programs were struggling with prevailing wage determinations in recruitment postings. Additionally, staffing and resources was also a big point that I think even going into 2025 planning that folks are now thinking about a lot more. But leaders cited insufficient staff and resources and the stress of constant reorganizations by the company as a significant pain point for their programs.
That sounds right. And I know you've been having a lot more follow-up conversations. And what I thought we could do today was walk through some of those challenges that you're hearing in those conversations and talk through what some potential solutions could be. As we know, many of our listeners in the global mobility space face similar challenges with these same pain points. So if you'll kick us off, walk us through scenario one. And of course, these are real life scenarios, but anonymized facts and figures so as to protect the privacy of the folks that you're speaking with on a weekly, daily basis.
Most definitely. All right. So the first scenario is an immigration manager is struggling with the workload managing their growing immigration program. She is looking for automation solutions to streamline processes and ensure compliance. The industry is a machinery and equipment manufacturer. She has 5 years of experience. The internal team size is one. The U.S. foreign national employee size is 200. The remote work is, yes, it's a hybrid situation. And her 2024 pain points are workload management and change management. How would you advise this immigration manager to assess their program for immigration compliance, leveraging technology or other streamlined solutions?
I think the first thing we're going to look at here is whether they are posting LCAs, labor condition application, for their H-1B E3s, H-1B1s, assuming this is a large part of their program. We're going to look at whether they're leveraging technology to post electronically there. A lot of programs I'm seeing that are in this sort of growth spurt or at this program size with this sort of program management size have still been paper posting. And especially in a hybrid workforce, that creates some challenges and some delays if you are relying on folks to be at the work site on the day that the LCA can be posted, that that it's been sent from your immigration counsel. So that's the first thing, is working with your counsel to set up, an automated process. This also requires the company to have an intranet, which, in this day and age, I thought most companies had them, but surprisingly, not all companies have moved into sort of an intranet with HR resources. So there are some companies that are still in early stages or don't have it yet. This hasn't been a priority. So this is going to, of course, require some IT team members to work with Immigration Counsel to create that pathway for that automated posting. Most vendors, WR included, can also automate the public access file maintenance. And so taking a few things off of that program manager's plate by leveraging technology that your Immigration Counsel can be doing for you, all baked in to the process, not only is going to expedite some of these processes, alleviate additional man force to, paper post, but also management of public access file. Automating that will also be compliance improvement. The other thing that this program manager can think about is, automating I-9 re-verification. Depending on the program size, sometimes I-9 is handled separately. Sometimes it's baked into the immigration program manager duties. So something to think about is, can your immigration vendor support I-9 re-verification? So some of my clients, we partner with them on this. It takes just something off of their plate that they would have to be doing follow-ups or ensuring that their I-9 software, if they're leveraging software, or if they're still on the paper form that they might be very manually doing. So something to sort of look at. Again, these are some very straightforward processes that you can have supported by your immigration vendor that will reduce your man hour, reduce any manual labor processes, and then have it very trackable in a system or a reporting structure that can come directly from immigration counsel. So those are some real easy things, if they aren't already being done, to partner with immigration counsel to leverage technology.
Definitely.
And just to clarify, I mean, for the I-9 management, the immigration vendor can't support all of the I-9 pieces, but re-verification for extensions, because the immigration counsel is handling, like touching the original approvals for whether that be an H-1B extension or
Right.
a STEM EAD card that gets mailed to that immigration counsel's office. That is something then, because we're handling the original, that the immigration counsel can support. So just create some efficiencies, but again, not completely taking I-9 off of the
Right.
plate of the company, but a substantial piece that could just be sort of baked into the extension process, which actually is another point, creating a streamlined extension process with your immigration vendor, whether that be giving the immigration vendor and sort of an auto extension authorization or some sort of minimal check-in authorization so that it's not so case by case receiving authorization from the immigration program manager, that if there's some way to verify that the H-1B employee remains employed,
Right.
maybe checking up with, an automated HRIS feed so as to make sure the data is flowing correctly. And then the immigration vendor can automatically move forward with H-1B extensions within the, 7 month renewal mark, so as to avoid the back and forth between counsel and the company.
Right. And that will also help with anxiety if someone just pops up out of nowhere and you're like, oh no, this person's losing work authorization. But having a reporting system and that partnership will really help.
Yeah, automating the renewal extension process with your immigration vendor probably will also eliminate those follow-ups that the foreign national may have. When are we going to start my extension? And so, of course, if you're partnering with your immigration vendor and are starting those extensions before the foreign national asks, it saves everybody an extra email, saves everybody a little
Yeah,
bit of heartburn there as well.
we're all for that. All for that these days. Awesome. Well, cool. Let's move on to the next scenario. So, an HRBP at a biotech startup is responsible for overseeing the company's immigration sponsorships. The company is experiencing rapid growth as they are receiving more funding. However, given the new funding, there is an emphasis from VC funding to reorganize departments, and the HR team has seen a lot of turnover, putting additional strain on the remaining HRBP. The industry is biotech. The years of experience is 5. The internal team size is 1. The number of US foreign national employees in the program is 50. They do not offer remote work, and their pain points for 2024 are reorganization and policy compliance. And question for you, Laura, how would you support this HRBP during the organization's reorganization?
So the first thing is check in with the HRBP to have them review any policies, any offer letters that state anything about immigration sponsorship, collect any and all of that internal data. A company this size may have a pretty limited policy. They probably haven't considered, how many sponsorships they would end up with as rapidly as they have. So that's the first thing. And the second would be recommending beefing up those policies. So when I've counseled folks in this situation, the policy documents are pretty minimal. It's usually just sort of onboarding timeframes or maybe a 10-year requirement for green card, but pretty minimal. And often it's, what have we done in the past? So it's really just like looking at precedent. And when there is some precedent, the recommendation here is writing it down. Is that something that's working for the company as they're growing? Do they want to change some of those things? And, we're recording this podcast here at August 27th. This is a great time to be reviewing your company's policies. And if you're going to roll something new out, to do that in the new year. So this would be a good opportunity, again, to take stock in what's been done. Was it working? Evaluate what priorities the company has in 2025 with new funding. That might mean more open recs. And with more open recs, that might mean more sponsorships. And so getting a good idea of budgeting, a good idea of what the company can do from an immigration benefit, making sure all stakeholders understand the costs of onboarding foreign nationals and future immigration green card sponsorships, as well as, what those policies look like from an HR management. So good timing here. The other thing with making policies is that it institutionalizes the information. So if there's been turnover in the past, there could be more turnover in the future. And having that all sort of documented will make it easier for future team members to understand, what the goals, priorities, and just how things are getting done from an HR side of things, especially when there's not like a, dedicated immigration person. A company this size, the HRBP is wearing multiple hats, especially in turnover. This HRBP may never have encountered immigration before and now is being tasked with it. So they just are going to need some strong policies to rely on and to provide the right support for those foreign nationals.
Most definitely. Having policies just in place in general, even from an operational standpoint, is super significant, and having everything in one place. As new team members come on board too, it's like, okay, this is what we've done in the past, and this is what we could do in the future. And it kind of allows for, I don't know, maybe new ideas and a sense of safety for new team members to join because they feel confident in the information. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have a client who is managing their HR immigration program, and a new director came in and was asking about, have we done this? Have we done that? And my day-to-day contact has only been in charge of the program for like the past 8 months. And so, her answer, rightly so, is I don't think we have, but I've only been here 8 months because there's just not documentation. We've also came in as a new vendor to support them. So, normally this is something you could ask your vendor, what have we done in the past? But because there was also a vendor change and actually kind of an unreliability of use of the previous vendor, even if they go back and ask that previous vendor, it's not a sure thing that that vendor is giving them the sort of precedent information that they're looking for. There's not a policy on record. So it's really just like asking who was around. And because the organization has had so much turnover, especially in HR, there's not really anyone that says like, yeah, we've done this in the past or we haven't. And so this is where we've introduced the conversation of, this seems like a great time to talk through policy that, we're kind of loose with some outline here. But if this is a really important question that came up recently within the organization, like, let's get this pinned down so that we don't sort of face this spinning on our wheels next year.
Mm-hmm. And one good tip that I always take with me from my previous job is OneNote. I don't know if teams use Microsoft OneNote, but we had basically a team OneNote with policies all throughout. He's like, oh, we changed our green card sponsorship policy to this, or whatever that may look like too for your vendor or et cetera. It was really great. It's just a one-stop shop for everything. More sensitive information, maybe not put in there, but
yeah, so it's sort of like the team can pop in and see the notes in addition or sort of on top of the policy that is shared with the foreign national employees or company employees generally, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it can be intimidating, to revise policy or change policy because it does require a lot of time and effort and stakeholder involvement. But to your point, even just offering, a OneNote shared document of when questions come up, because inevitably a policy is going to have language that then people are going to test. Like, how do we interpret this? What about, this extenuating circumstance? Like, of course, those things are going to come up. I like your idea of sort of, well, we don't need to necessarily revise the whole policy, but here's how we've interpreted this, premium processing business necessity in XYZ circumstances. That's helpful.
Exactly.
I do think some policies that have examples, that when they sort of bake that in to a policy update offers more clarification, kind of depends on your company's flavor for how they want to sort of put policies out or how much discretion you want to leave in the policy.
Okay. Most definitely. And then connecting that to an internet page too could also be a one-stop shop for people. We were just talking about internet pages earlier, so it could be another addition to your internet page. Or if you have a separate microsite too for your North America immigration team or global team, that could also be an option as well.
Ooh, this also just made me think of, the other thing that's come up, unfortunately, recently in light of layoffs, especially a company this size, when they are doing layoffs, whether it be because of funding or other sort of organizational issues, when they have to lay off a foreign national employee, often we're revisiting, okay, what benefits or if they're offering severance, what can we do for this foreign national employee? And what you want to make sure is that it's consistent. You want to be working with your employment attorney that's licensed in the state that this employment action is happening. But my biggest advice here is, you don't want to make special exceptions because this person is a foreign national, or you don't want to make exceptions because of the level of the employee. Like, you want to make sure it's consistent with what you've done in the past and what you're willing to do for all employees in this situation moving forward. And so we get into this scenario of, well, 60-day grace period is really tough. Of course it is. Immigration policy here is really unforgiving. But once you've made an employment action and terminated the employee-employer relationship, there's limited things you can do. You can't put the rabbit back in the hat, so to speak. And so I've had a lot of really challenging conversations about folks wanting to make exceptions for foreign national employees and maybe making even statements to that foreign national employee about what they want to do for them. And it just gets really, really tough if you're not willing to offer certain benefits to everybody on a go-forward basis. So just be really, really careful. And this is, in scenarios where there's just not been a policy and folks get really nervous or want to help out. And of course, that's well-intentioned, but can cause some significant problems down the road.
Most definitely. Well, awesome. Well, cool. Let's jump into our third scenario. A senior mobility manager is responsible for overseeing the corporate mobility program and must find ways to communicate corporate immigration policy changes to their foreign national employees. The company is experiencing rapid growth, putting additional strain on the global mobility team's capacity. The industry is the medical device manufacturing. He or she has 10 years of experience in the industry. The internal team size is 2. The foreign national population is 950. The model is an office-only setup, and their 2024 pain points is budget optimization and managing growth. So question for you, Laura. What strategies would you suggest to the senior mobility manager to effectively manage the mobility program during their growth and change management?
Whew. Well, this is a problem, a good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. You basically, the senior mobility manager is looking to, double their reach, double their size without necessarily doubling their internal team. And, the first way is to collect questions you receive a lot of. So if you're receiving the same questions about, what documents do I need to go for visa stamping? Work with your immigration counsel to create strong FAQs, create videos, create cadences for immigration counsel or for your internal team to present lunch and learns, whatever it might be, and record them, put them on your intranet site so that you're delivering the information in a meaningful way. So this is going to depend on your company culture, how the employees receive information. I think, if you're going a written documentation, bulleted. People don't want to read a 3-page treatise. I don't want to. Your employees don't want to. But videos is also really great, a 2-minute video of like, here are the documents, or hot links into here's how you request your HR employment verification letter. Here's how you collect your pay stubs. Like, a lot of employees just don't know. And so if you create this immigration website, relinking them to other internal company resources, that's going to be really helpful, especially when it's just sort of like a document checklist that they might need for, again, the common questions. The other thing is, as strong as your FAQs, as strong as your internal memos are going to be, you also want to make sure that there's a way for your employees to reach a human, whether that's someone on your team. And then if you're strapped for time, rely on your immigration counsel for guidance there too, and create a way for the immigration counsel to have office hours or, easy scheduling, whether that's using a program like Calendly. I love that, where it's just a link and it has my availability in the hours that I work or my team works, get everybody on the phone that needs to be on the phone at the same time so that they're getting all their questions answered in that 15, 30-minute block. That can be really effective rather than exchanging, 8 emails, frustrating people not getting their questions answered or just trying to get scheduling done. So the combination of effective, efficient scheduling with FAQs, there's definitely going to be employees that want to do self-serve, but inevitably there's going to be some situations that just don't fall into the FAQ, that they've got some sort of extenuating circumstance.
Yeah, I always found that just talking to people really helps. This email is going to be massively long. It's super complicated. It's immigration policy that, you know, it's confusing to anyone, right? So just having a conversation and it relieves so much anxiety too.
Yeah, I think it de-escalates if someone's really upset about not getting visa appointments timely. Well, I can answer your question in 5 minutes. They might take a 30-minute block, but the question gets answered efficiently in the 5-10 minutes. So we're not often even using the 30-minute block, but that it feels good that they're getting the attention that they want and not sort of escalating from there. The other thing is developing like a communication strategy or a communication schedule with your immigration vendor. So when we're talking about these frequently asked questions, well, they come up kind of in a sequence. Like we can predict in Q4, folks are going to be booking holiday travel. So why don't we get ahead of that and have a travel town hall in the next couple of months, September, October. So before people are booking that, we're preparing them with the documents they need to have on hand and FAQs or sort of live Q&A for how to complete a DS-160. In January, we're going to be kicking off H-1B cap registrations. Folks are going to have questions. They're going to want to know, am I included? And so developing, timelines for communication so that even if you're getting questions from your foreign national populations, you can say council will reach out to you by January 15th or whatever the decided date is so that you have, a templated response, but that you're working in partnership with council or your vendors to make sure that everybody's on the same page and delivering the information. So if folks are really anxious, you can say, hang on, we're going to get you the full package of information by this date. And that could be really helpful in alleviating the stress on your behalf because you're facing a lot in your growing program, but then also making sure that the information is delivered in a timely way.
Yeah, I found that as long as folks understand what's coming next, it really does help the situation, right? Here's
Totally.
upcoming, here's the H-1B lottery, here's what's going to happen if you don't get selected. Here's when we start the green card process for you. Just making sure everyone's on the same page is huge.
Yeah. So to your point, it's like, you as the, senior mobility manager, that's senior program double, don't need to be providing the substantive response within, your service level agreement to your, internal clients. You can just give them the date of when the information will be delivered, which will alleviate, how long you're spending responding to folks, and that partnering with your council, they'll have everything ready to go, timely to deliver, reach out to all the folks and the timeline that you're promising. So yeah, exactly.
And it streamlines workload and capacity for you as well. It kind of frees up time once you have that communication schedule and folks are more informed.
Totally. So, the growing problem is a problem, but leverage your counsel to help be those additional resources to help you direct your program. This also does go back to policies. If you've got a strong policy document, handing that over to your immigration counsel to help you enforce and navigate will also allow you to kind of double your team's effectiveness when everybody's communicating the same messaging.
I completely agree. Well, that's all of our scenarios for today, Laura. Thank you so much for walking me through
Been
that
great.
because it's super informative just for, I think, every industry and really having streamlined communication and making sure your team is set up for success is going to be super important, especially going into 2025.
Totally. Thanks for presenting these challenges and the feedback you've received from folks you're chatting with. I'll be excited for you to present more pain points as you continue your conversation and collect more information and anecdotes from leaders in the global mobility space.
Definitely. I'll keep you posted, Laura.
Thanks.
Thanks.